Chapter 92, 5th Year, Closing. Tuesday, the 30th of June, 1976. "I'm sorry," said Sirius Black, with big, anxious eyes, standing behind Remus as he brushed his teeth. "I'm sorry," murmured Sirius Black, low over the breakfast table before Mary had arrived. "I'm sorry," pleaded Sirius Black, as Remus walked away again. "I'm sorry," whispered Sirius Black, as Remus closed his bed curtains every night. "So let him suffer," said the cruelest part of Remus, the part that had been hurt the most. He turned his head, he walked away, he closed doors and he shut his eyes. "Sorry isn't good enough," he said with every action. "I don't know what is." James and Peter watched, cautiously, out of the corner of their eyes. They knew not to get involved, though James undoubtedly bore the brunt of Sirius's distress. The late-night meetings had returned with a vengeance. The girls noticed that something was wrong, but they weren't sure what. Lily thought he was nervous about going back to St. Edmund's. Marlene thought he was worrying about owl results. Remus went along with both notions gratefully. After all, he was doing everything he could bear to act as normally as possible. He joined the Marauders for meals, he sat in his usual place, he read his books, he played chess with Peter, gobstones with James. In the evenings, he climbed the stairs to bed. But he didn't speak to Sirius. For the remaining 2 weeks of June, Remus didn't say so much as a word in his direction. He didn't even look at him, if he could help it. He had the feeling, after the first week, that perhaps James didn't completely approve of this. Potter was furious on Remus's behalf, of course, at least in the facts of the matter. But James could be very blind when it came to Sirius's less excusable flaws. James would have forgiven him after the first apology. Maybe Remus was a weaker man, but he wouldn't be weak anymore. He needed to get back to who he really was. We can all learn our lesson. Remus had tried being soft and open, like all of his rich, well-bred friends. Where had it got him? He'd gone and fallen in love with his best friend, and almost got himself killed. He was ashamed of himself, mooning over Sirius like that. Moon is mooning. Sirius would find that hilarious. So he started avoiding James and Peter too. He stopped going to lessons. That was the first thing. There weren't many to go to, of course, with the last exams taking place and the whole school falling into summer holiday mode. Until he had introductory newt classes penciled into his timetable in almost every subject except potions, he couldn't wait to be rid of potions. The greenhouses were a good place to hide out. Remus found by the end of the year that he had spent nearly all his carefully saved cash on cigarettes and weed. He told himself that was okay. Told himself he wouldn't need money to find and destroy greyback, just the right scent and a full moon. Not that he thought about greyback much. He tried not to think about anything for too long. Anger gave way to a numbness which seemed easier to live with. When he couldn't be outside, he went to the library and pretended to read. Students from his study group stopped by occasionally, but he always found a reason to leave as soon as possible. "Hiya, Remus!" Christopher popped out from behind the stacks one afternoon. "Glad I caught you. Can you recommend some summer reading? I'll be doing my owls next year." "What?" Remus frowned groggily. He'd just been nodding off and was annoyed at having been woken. He was sleeping a lot lately, but never seemed to feel refreshed. "Oh, God, I don't know. They'll send you a book list." "Yeah, but I thought you might have some good tips," Christopher continued, relentlessly cheerful. "Especially in history. What did you do for your final essay?" The Goblin Revolt." He shifted, trying to settle back onto his elbows. "Cool. Hey, maybe I could write to you over the summer. We can swap notes and—" "Look, Christopher, don't take this the wrong way, but could you please fuck off?" He would feel guilty about it later, but at least the annoyance went away. The Marauders never tried to find him, as far as he knew. He had taken the map the first chance he had, and kept it in his pocket at all times. This had the added benefit of helping him keep out of Snape's way. The only thing Remus wanted to avoid more than his rage at Sirius was his utter terror at the thought of running into Severus. Snape had hated Remus before all of this. He was too close to Lily, he was friends with James, he had been responsible for coming up with at least half of the pranks on Slytherin. Since the incident, this obsession seemed to have deepened. He was still whispering at meal times, staring at Remus all the time, with a fresh kind of hatred that Remus could see would run and run. If Sirius had learnt a lesson from that awful night, then Remus was certain that Snape had not. Sirius was all too keen. He apologised over and over. He never tried to explain himself, which was good, because if he had given an excuse, Remus didn't think he could have controlled himself. It already took every ounce of nerve not to leap across the table, or the bedroom, or the common room, and shake and punch and scream at Sirius. "You bastard, you bastard, you bastard!" The apologies he could cope with. Background noise. He didn't rise to the bait. Not that he didn't have things to say. Not that he didn't replay the monologue over and over, editing and perfecting it till it was a great stream of miserable defect, circling his head, fueling his mood. Sorry isn't good enough. Your guilt isn't good enough. I need you to feel it too. I trusted you. I trusted you with every last secret. I offered you every piece of me. What else have I got now? I could kill you. I could bash your teeth in so you choke on them. I could wrap my hands around your throat and squeeze. I could rip you to pieces. I could kiss you, you fucking bastard. In his dreams, Remus said these things, and more. And always, in his dreams, Sirius stared back at him with calm eyes as he removed his clothes and pulled Remus towards him. It appeared that betrayal was not enough to kill desire, though it made hiding it easier. By the time that wretched summer term ended, the only person Remus despised more than Sirius was himself, for continuing to love him just the same. "Hello," Lily said gently, poking her head around the carriage door. "Wondered where you'd got to." Remus grunted, a small noise which was neither friendly nor rude. Lily came inside. "What are you doing in here, all alone?" Remus shrugged, sucking his cigarette like it was keeping him alive. He hunched down in his seat, and she took the place opposite him. "Too crowded in there," he said, by way of explanation. "Know how you feel," she replied. "McGonagall told me you'd given up being a prefect." "Yep." He finished his cigarette. He lit another. "Shame. You were good at it." "Liar," he smirked. Her face lit up too. "Yeah, okay, you were rubbish, but I'll miss you on my rounds." She let this hang in the air for a moment, before frowning again. "Remus, whatever's going on with you and the other boys, I hope it gets better. You seem so miserable." "I'm fine." "Black's off the team." "Is he?" "What did he do?" "Leave it, Evans. Just go away." "You know, you can talk to me. I know how it feels to be let down by a friend." "How is Snivelus?" Remus snarled. He wished he could tell her that it wasn't her fault, that he couldn't help acting like a prick, that if he didn't act this way, then he wasn't really sure how to act at all. Well, I'm still not talking to him, as you know. He keeps trying, though. He had some pretty mad stories, actually, about you." Remus looked at her finally. She looked nervous, her hands twisting in her lap. She looked a bit scared of him, actually. I don't believe them," she said suddenly. "Don't you?" He raised an eyebrow. He should have known this was coming. "I mean, just because well, you do have quite a lot of scars, sorry, and you do get ill quite a lot. But that doesn't mean... I hadn't really thought about it. Maybe it's just a weird coincidence. Sev has always been a bit paranoid and..." He could have watched her squirm like that for ages, tangling herself up in apologies and unasked questions. But why bother? He could be reckless too. "Lily," he said gently, stubbing out his last cigarette. "You can't tell anyone." She stopped blathering and stared at him. He saw her big green eyes widen even more, the look of surprise on her face so comical he could cry. Her breath hitched, then she nodded, resolute and quite serious. "I won't," she said. "Promise." Chapter 93. Summer, 1976. Part 1. London. Wednesday, the 16th of August, 1976. St. Edmund's was less bearable than usual that summer. Remus was angry almost all of the time. It was too hot, and he missed Hogwarts, and he missed his friends, and most of all he missed Sirius. But he also hated him. It was a huge mess. He missed Grant too. Grant, who might have made it all a bit more manageable, or at least offered some escapism. But, as an unsatisfying conversation with another St. Eddie's boy called Mike had told him, Grant had left St. Edmund's shortly after Christmas. He was living in a flat in Mile End, apparently, though Remus didn't have much more information than that. And he had said Remus could come any time. "At least I'm not knocking over off licenses or getting pissed on the common this time," he thought as he planned his escape. As summer rebellions went, this was perhaps the most healthy. He waited until the second full moon of the summer had passed, on the 10th of August. On the 11th, he waited for Madame Pomfrey to come and give him the all-clear. And then he just left. He was sore and extremely tired, but at the time he didn't feel like he had any other option. He packed a small bag, without taking books or homework or his wand or anything at all that reminded him of Hogwarts. He would be a muggle for a few days. Why not? All Remus had to do was walk out into the garden and crawl through the fence at the back, just as he had been doing for years to get into town. From there, he simply walked to the nearest tube. Thaden Bois Underground Station was about 5 miles away, but he did it easily in under 2 hours, even with a gammy hip. He couldn't afford a ticket, but it wasn't difficult to push through the barriers behind a group of suited businessmen on their way to work. He got a seat on the train and pretended to be asleep so that the ticket inspector wouldn't bother him, listening to the rattling rumble roar of the train as the carriage whooshed along the tracks like a great earthworm ploughing its way into central London. Excitement pulsed in Remus's chest as he reached Mile End, where he hurried out of the carriage into the dimly lit green and white tiled station. Mile End had been hit by a German bomb during the war and still hadn't recovered from the shock of it. It was a dirty, sprawling mess of a high street, littered with rubble and newspapers, children playing in the road, noise everywhere. The grim anonymity suited Remus. Who would come looking for him here? Who would find him? He wondered for a bit, unsure what to do next. The information he'd been given was just a building name, no street address. But after asking in a newsagent's, and quite literally following his nose, he found it. It turned out that Grant didn't actually have a flat. Not in the sense that he owned it, or was even renting it. As far as Remus could tell, it was a squat, shared with several other young men and women. He hadn't actually been expecting Remus either. "Bloody hell!" he exclaimed, when one of the girls finally brought him to the door. "What are you doing here?" Remus felt very foolish. He wasn't sure what sort of welcome he would have liked, but it wasn't that. "You did say I could visit." "Yeah, sorry." Grant grabbed his shoulder and pulled him inside. "Sorry, I'm just a bit hungover. Give me a minute." He led Remus into what appeared to be a kitchen. It smelled vaguely of curry and damp. There were bubbles in the wallpaper and holes in the yellow linoleum floor. Grant flicked on an electric kettle. "One of the girls sorted us with a generator," he explained. "She's a mechanic or something." "Tea?" Remus nodded. Tea usually helped. Grant looked different. Only a year older than the last time Remus had seen him. He was thinner, about the face. He'd lost some of the brightness in his eyes, and his blonde hair was even longer, still curly, but badly in need of a wash. He seemed to have chipped a tooth at some point as well, and a bruise the colour of old honey marred his left cheek. Even so, he still had the same friendly grin. He handed Remus a steaming mug and smiled at him. "You look, well, like shit," he said, sipping from his own mug. "Been sleeping rough?" "Oh, no," Remus shook his head. "I just got off the tube from St. Eddie's." "Oh yeah? How's Matron? Kick you out, did she? Kicked me out, the old trollop." "Nothing like that," Remus said. "I just thought I'd visit, see how you were." "Mike tell you where I was?" "Yeah. So who is Mike?" Remus smiled at him shyly from behind his mug of tea. "Oh, you know," Grant smirked. "Just some company for me. Couldn't pine over you all year, could I, posh boy?" "He's really thick." "Is he?" Grant looked mildly amused. "I never noticed. Didn't talk much." Remus snorted at this, and it felt good. Grant made him feel so normal. He could never comfortably joke about that sort of thing with the Marauders, even when they were all on speaking terms. The squat was cleaner than it first appeared, but still in a pretty bad state. There were 6 of them living there, between 2 bedrooms and a living room, which was visible through a beaded doorway across the hall. Apparently one of the boys even slept in the bathroom, because none of the plumbing was connected anyway. The only working tap was in the kitchen. "There's a loo outside," Grant explained. "Sometimes we can get in to use the showers at the boxing club next door." "Oi, oi!" Another young man had woken up from his spot on the sofa. "Make us a cuppa, Grant darlin'. Who's this?" He was shirtless, dark-skinned, and gorgeous. He had the same far-away look Grant had now. "Mate of mine from the children's home," Grant said. "Remus Lupin." "That's never your name." The stranger gawped at him. "Straight up," Grant replied, on Remus's behalf. "Goes to a posh school and everything in it. Remus, this is Ads." "Blimey," Ads stared at Remus, then back at Grant. "He one of us?" Grant handed Ads a third mug of tea and surveyed Remus, looking him up and down appraisingly. He nodded, very slightly. Remus wasn't sure what that meant, but he had some idea. He stifled a yawn. Grant chuckled sympathetically. "You look dead on your feet," he said. "Had one of your nights, have you? Go and lie down if you want. I'll kick 'em out of the bedroom. No one will bother you." Remus nodded gratefully, and was led into a dark and dingy room. "Oi, you lazy gits! Up you get! Got a mate here who needs a kip." Remus murmured an embarrassed apology to the 4 young men who clambered to their feet and milled out of the room. The beds seemed to be used on a rotating basis, and no one looked annoyed by this intrusion. One of the boys even winked at Remus. 3 sad single mattresses lay on the floor, strewn with old blankets and pillows. It smelt vaguely of mould, and strongly of unwashed bodies. Cardboard had been used to stop up the broken windows. Remus was glad it was summer. It might have been freezing cold otherwise. Despite it all, he slept easily, feeling that he had finally taken some control over his situation. Grant woke him some hours later. He looked a little better, as if he'd had a good meal at least. Remus's stomach rumbled. "Wakey, wakey," Grant chirped, holding another mug of tea. Remus sat up, rubbing his eyes. Some of the soreness left over from the full moon was still there, but he felt better. It must have been midday, judging by the blazing rays of light coming through the gaps in the cardboard. "Thanks," he rasped, sipping the tea, moving along so that Grant could sit beside him. They sat in companionable silence for a little while, back against the wall and legs splayed out in front of them. "So," Grant said finally, once he had judged Remus sufficiently awake and half the tea was drunk. "Want to tell me why you're here?" Remus shrugged. "Just visiting. Sick of that place." "Yeah. I know that feeling, Grant sighed. Ain't you going back to school in a few weeks, though? Yeah, maybe. He knew he had to. There was nowhere else to go. Sick of that place too? Grant nudged him, gently teasing. Go on, tell us what happened. Get your heart broken. Remus looked at him, startled. Grant chuckled. Yeah, thought so. Who is he then? It's not... Remus stuttered. It's not that. It's complicated. My friend just... let me down. Yep, they always do. Grant nodded sagely. Bet they're the worst for it, public schoolboys, eh? Especially with us peasants. It wasn't like that at all. Yeah. He waved a dismissive hand. Tell yourself you're different if you like. Stay away from toffs, if you want my advice. We're just a bit of fun to them. Keep to your own kind. This isn't about class, Remus said angrily. Grant glanced down at him sympathetically, as if he was much older and wiser. Have a look around, Remus, he said, gesturing to the dank room they were in. We're British. It's always about class. Remus looked down at his chipped mug of greyish tea. Grant was probably right. What else was this stupid war all about? He felt he ought to say something else, something witty or clever. He stared at the tea and just felt sad. He might lose it if he spoke. Grant set his own mug down on the wooden floor and touched Remus's hand. You're going to be okay. It stops hurting after a while. No, it was no good. Remus had lost it. He sniffed a few times, trying harder than ever not to cry, but the tears came, and he was too tired. Grant put an arm around him, and Remus leaned on his shoulder, sobbing softly, hiccuping every now and then, like a little child. Grant kissed his head softly, and whispered into his hair, Ain't no shame in it, which only made him cry harder. It was a good thing, maybe. Once he'd finally calmed down, he felt like he'd had a good long sleep. He wiped his nose on his sleeve and straightened up, looking for something else to talk about. Is everyone here, you know? He asked shyly. Queer? Yeah, most of us. Nowhere else to go. Coppers leave us alone if we leave them alone. Police? But it isn't a crime. Is for someone your age. Grant raised an eyebrow. Age of consent is 21 for us deviants. Oh, right, yeah. But I wasn't going to... Grant laughed and ruffled Remus's hair. You staying the night? A lot of us are off to this pub in Soho. It's safe enough. Can I stay then? Just for a bit? Don't see why not. Come on, let's get you fed. He hauled himself to his feet, looking thinner than ever in his spindly drain-pipe jeans. He offered Remus a hand and pulled him up too. Lunch was baked beans on toast. The bread was a bit mouldy, but they scraped off the greenest bits. Afterwards, they sat about in the living room with some of Grant's housemates and smoked pot with Bob Dylan playing in the background. Everything felt distinctly mugglish, and Remus was glad of it. It was so simple. No one knew him except Grant, who hardly knew him well. It would be very easy to disappear, if you wanted to, Remus thought to himself. After a few deep drags on the spliff, Remus found himself lying on the deeply damp beige carpet, staring up at the tobacco-stained ceiling. Grant gently placed a cushion under his head. He was being so kind, like an older brother, even though they were practically the same age, and only a year ago had been all over each other. If Remus was being fully honest with himself, he had come prepared for more of the same, but was eternally grateful that Grant had never so much as hinted in that direction. Fucking dogs keep barking, someone said in the background, bringing Remus slowly out of his dreamy state. What is it, a stray? Someone else asked. Dunno, bloody massive though, Horrible black thing. Did you say there's a black dog outside? Remus sat up slowly, a sinking feeling in his belly. It couldn't be. Surely. Yeah, Ads replied, standing at the window. Remus stood up and went over to join him. Sure enough, there it was. He stepped back quietly behind the curtain, so Sirius wouldn't see him. How far could dogs see? I need the loo. Just a minute. Remus muttered, exiting the flat quickly. He hurried down the stairs and took the door out to the courtyard, where he stood at the threshold, watching the huge black dog still barking up at the window. Hello, Sirius, he said quietly. The dog turned and was quiet at once. James with you? Hiya, Mooney. James stepped out from behind some bins. Lovely place you've got here. Look, I'm not in the mood. Remus folded his arms. He felt a bit light-headed from the dope. What do you want? Sirius had not transformed back, but sat there, watching him. Good. That made it easier for Remus to ignore him. He addressed James instead. What do you mean, what do we want? James raised an eyebrow. We were worried about you. Your matron called the Muggle police and said you'd escaped. Somehow Dumbledore found out and got in touch with my parents. I think they thought you'd come to ours. Sirius was sure you'd gone into London. He followed your scent practically all the way from the children's home. You were at St. Edmund's? Yeah. Remus cringed at that, embarrassed. He had never wanted his friends to know what it was like where he lived. He sighed and held out his arms, as if presenting himself for inspection. Well, you found me, he said. As you can see, I'm perfectly fine. Now go away and tell your dog to stop barking. He couldn't help slipping in a nasty barb at Sirius. His desire to hurt him had not gone away, apparently. Padfoot whined slightly and ducked his head. James ignored it, focusing on Remus. You're not perfectly fine. Never mind the fact that you appear to be hanging out in a Muggle squat, or the fact that the Muggle police are looking for you. We have to bring you back, right now. Dumbledore can only avoid telling the Ministry you've gone walkabouts for 24 hours, he said. Then they'll set the auras on you. What? Why? But it suddenly dawned on Remus exactly why. He was not just a runaway teen, like Grant and his friends. He was a dangerous creature on the loose. He suddenly felt very, very tired. Fuck's sake, he muttered, looking down. Come home with us, Remus. James extended a hand. Dad said you can stay for the rest of the summer. I haven't forgiven him, Remus said, fiercely, looking at James because he could not look at Sirius. James looked as tired as Remus felt. I know, mate. It's okay. He gets it. That made him angrier still. He didn't want Sirius to get it. He wanted... Well, he didn't know what he wanted. Begging on his hands and knees? Padfoot was doing a good job of that as it was. He sighed. Look, I've got a friend here. Let me go and tell him I'm leaving. Upstairs, he called for Grant from the hall. He didn't like to say a big goodbye in front of everyone. You all right, Remus mate? Grant said, from the top of the stairs, peering down at James and the dog Sirius waiting in the hall. Yeah, fine. Look, I'm gonna go. I have to go. Your friend? Grant eyed James suspiciously. You gonna be safe? Yeah, he's a friend from school. It's fine. I can ring you, maybe. He had no idea how he'd contact a Muggle squat from the wizarding world. You can come back any time. Thanks. Seriously, Grant. Thanks for everything. You're amazing. Don't make me blush. Grant wrapped his arms around his skinny body, looking down at his feet. There's nothing you wouldn't do for me. Right. Remus nodded. Grant looked down the stairs again. That dog belonged to him or something. Should be on a lead. Yeah, probably. Remus nodded, hoping Sirius could hear. Not dangerous, is it? Bloody hate dogs, me. He's pretty tame, don't worry. I'll be in touch, okay? Remus bit his lip, glancing back through the open door into this crowded squat. Will you be okay? Ear. Grant shrugged and grinned. Don't worry about me, sweetheart. I always land on my feet. Remus stepped forward, putting a hand on Grant's shoulder to push him gently backwards into the shadow of the stairwell, so that they could not be seen by James and Sirius, or through the doorway. He hugged him tightly. Grant hugged him back, so beautifully. They pulled away and shared a brief friendly kiss, before both grinning shyly and stepping apart. What is it about you? Grant ruffled Remus's hair. Don't stay away too long. See you. Remus nodded. Chapter 94. Summer 1976. Part 2. The Potters. They caught the night bus back to the Potters. It was Remus's first experience on this bizarre wizarding transport, but he was so fuzzy from lack of sleep and the remnants of the weed that he found himself dozing off in the comfortable purple armchair. Sirius stayed a dog for the duration, but Remus refused to give him any extra points for this. James shook him awake once they arrived. It was late afternoon now. Remus stopped outside the front gate and looked at James nervously. Will Dumbledore be there? I think he's gone, James said, reassuringly. Moody might have stopped by, though. For me? He's seen Dad. Look, I didn't want to say anything on the bus, but it's been a bad summer, you know, for the war. We're losing. Losing? Yeah. Let's talk about it inside. Padfoot? James clicked his fingers at the black dog. Instantly, Sirius transformed back into himself. Remus looked away at once. Still gorgeous then. You bastard. Inside, Mrs. Potter came running. Remus! She reached her arms up to pull him into a hug. Euphemia! A voice barked from the living room. Oh, for goodness sake, Mrs. Potter muttered. She took a step back and looked Remus in the eye. What did Monty and I give you for Christmas in 1973? A chess set, Remus said quickly, eyeing the doorway where Moody's voice had come from. It's him, Effie called, outstretching her arms once more and hugging him as tightly as their height difference would allow. We were so worried about you, dear. I'm okay, Remus said, embarrassed. We thought you'd been... Oh, well, it doesn't bear thinking about. People going missing, dark marks. I really don't. She looked very pale and washed out, as if she'd had a lot of bad news lately. Remus felt terrible for adding to her troubles. Never mind, she said briskly, smiling again. Something to eat? Or would you like a wash first? Albus sent your things. They're up in your usual room. My things? From the home, dear. Dumbledore sent them first thing this morning. Everything had happened so quickly. Was that really necessary? Moody appeared from the living room. He looked Remus up and down with one eye. The other he appeared to have injured recently. It was covered by a thick leather patch. The effect made him look even more grizzled and terrifying than ever. Lupin? He nodded. A word? No, Alistair. Mrs. Potter seemed to have surprised everyone when she turned and placed herself between Remus and Moody. He's only just arrived, and look at him. He's clearly exhausted. This can wait until tomorrow. Effie, this is a matter of ministry. Oh, I don't give a toss, she tutted, shutting him up with a wag of her finger. He's only 16. He's not of age, and he's in my care. Remus, she turned around, her voice kind again. You just pop upstairs. I'll have Gully send some food up. But don't you come down until you're quite ready. Remus blinked in amazement. Could it be that an adult actually wanted to leave him alone? That had to be a first. He had a new respect for Euphemia Potter. "Thanks," he murmured, avoiding Moody's fierce gaze and edging past them, ignoring Sirius and James, heading straight for the stairs, climbing them as fast as his clunky hip would allow. All of his things had been neatly tidied away into drawers and cupboards in his bedroom, as if he lived there. He wondered what it would be like, having a place like this to call home, a place with a private bedroom, and a house elf, and a mother. He took his wand out of his trunk and held it for a little while, just to feel it. What a day! Remus felt terrible about leaving Grant, after he'd been so hospitable with the little he had. There were 3 empty bedrooms in the Potter's house. Grant would be sharing a mattress on the floor tonight. He sat on the bed and wished it wasn't so comfortable. He could easily sleep again, but he was hungry too, and didn't want to miss Gully. As if by magic, there was a soft knock at the door. "Come in." James poked his head around. "Hiya. I offered to bring the tray up. Hope you don't mind." Remus made a helpless gesture. James looked awkward. "Can I come in?" "Okay." Can Padfoot?" "No." "Okay." James disappeared, and Remus heard him whisper, "Give him a bit of time, yeah?" before reappearing and entering the room with a tray piled high with what looked like ham sandwiches. "Mum suggested soup," he explained, setting it down on the bed. "But I said you'd want something meaty." "Cheers." Remus nodded, grabbing one of the rolls and stuffing it into his mouth. At least then he didn't have to talk. "How are you feeling?" James asked, his eyes full of concern. Remus nodded, mouth full, to indicate that he felt perfectly fine. James nodded back. This is how it will be, Remus thought glumly, without Sirius to translate between us. James and Remus were very good friends, best friends. They had been alone together before, had private conversations, and shared confidences. But somehow, it wasn't the same. Sirius had always been the common denominator, who understood them both, bridging the gap, in a way. "Look," James said. "Tell me to piss off, if you want, and I'll let you rest, but I need to tell you something. It's important." "Is it about Moody?" Remus asked, swallowing. "Yeah," James said. "Yeah, he'll want to tell you, but Dad and I thought it should come from a friend first." "He's here on ministry business, it sounds like," Remus said carefully, wanting to understand everything, so James didn't need to explain it. "He's an aura, so... Has there been an attack?" "Yeah." James looked like he was struggling to maintain eye contact, but he was brave, and he did what needed to be done. "Actually, there have been a few this summer, and some people going missing, people on our side. Then, there was another attack last night, Remus." He put emphasis on this. Last night, the full moon. "A werewolf," Remus breathed. James nodded, his mouth a grim straight line. Remus put down the sandwich. His stomach growled in protest, but that was just the wolf, wanting more than it deserved, as usual. It would have to starve. "I was at St. Edmund's," Remus said desperately. "The whole time, locked up. Madame Pomfrey saw me. I can't have got out. Look!" He raised his shirt hurriedly to show James the long raw gashes along his ribs. James winced and looked away. Remus remembered that James had rarely ever seen his scars. It was Sirius, who had always been so fascinated. "I know," James said, once Remus had replaced his shirt. "And Mum and Dad know. Dumbledore explained everything. He told Moony there was no way you had anything to do with anything. But he'll want to talk to you anyway." "Did the attack? Did anyone get hurt?" "Yeah, a few deaths. Some muggles. And a wizard family." "Shit. Are you okay?" I honestly don't have an answer for you, Prongs. Right, sorry. How's your summer been? Remus asked, desperate to put off any more bad news. Good? Yeah, not bad. Well, the war's been. But, you know, loads of flying. Mary was here for a bit too, to see Sirius. James stopped short. Sorry. How is Mary? Oh, fine. You know, Mary. He sent her home this morning, after we heard you were missing. It was his idea to go looking for you. He did nearly everything, even shouted at Dumbledore. I couldn't believe it. Okay, Remus said coldly. James frowned. Moony, he's so sorry. I've heard. He was a mess when he heard you were missing, and about the attacks. He thought all sorts of crazy things, that you'd been kidnapped or targeted or something. Can't you at least talk to him? He's miserable. I don't care how he feels, Remus lied. I don't want to talk to him. He's an idiot, James said. I'm the first to admit it. He doesn't bloody think. He just does whatever comes into his head. But, well, you have to remember his family, the way they treated him, the stuff at Christmas. I know what happened at Christmas, Remus snapped. I was there too, James. Yeah, I know, and I felt sorry for him then. I really did. I felt sorry for him when we were kids, and every time they hurt him, and when they kicked him out. I spent a lot of time feeling so sorry for him. But this... He stopped. Tears would ruin everything. No tears. James was very quiet. I'll let you rest, he said, finally getting up to leave. Thursday the 12th of August, 1976. Remus didn't leave the room for the rest of the afternoon, except once to use the bathroom. It was no better than St. Edmund's, he thought, self-pityingly. Better food, obviously, and magic and quiet, but, well, he still spent all of his time trying to avoid everyone, didn't he? Moody was still in the house. He could smell him. Moody had a strange scent, a combination of very strong and powerful magic, heavy and metallic like iron, plus something else, coal embers or charred wood. He would not leave until he spoke with Remus, so Remus stayed put. Sirius's scent was all too familiar, stronger in the house, now he called it home, permeating every room. He hadn't been moping by himself all summer, no matter what James said. Sirius had the Potters, and Mary, and his best friend, all telling him how wonderful and how hard done by he was. Poor little rich boy, probably hadn't missed Remus at all. Except James had said, nope. Remus stiffened his resolve. Sirius had to pay, even if it was only in Remus's silence. The next day he went down for breakfast, more out of politeness towards his hosts than anything else. He tried his best to smile at James's mother and thank her as she served him a bowl of porridge, but scowled when Sirius pushed the jar of honey towards him. He ignored it, and for the first time in his life ate his porridge unsweetened. It tasted crap. We'll go to Diagon Alley today, I think, Mrs. Potter said as the kettle boiled. Your letters arrived this morning, Remus. I'm very sorry, but you'll have to stay here, dear. I'll pick up your bits. I get my books second-hand, Remus said, flushing. From the supply at Hogwarts. I've got no money. Oh, well, I don't mind. I'm already sorting it for James and Sirius. I'm paying you back, Sirius jumped in eagerly. As soon as I'm 17, I promise. I know, dear. Mrs. Potter patted Sirius's arm fondly. I can't pay you back, Remus said, talking to Mrs. Potter, but glaring at Sirius, gritting his teeth. Even when I'm 17, I haven't got an inheritance. Sirius lowered his eyes, crestfallen. Why can't Remus come, Mum? James jumped in quickly. He's never been before. I'm afraid it's not very safe, love, Mrs. Potter sighed. Dumbledore and Moody both agree, after the attack. Remus dropped his head into his hands. He saw his life unravelling before his eyes. It would always be this way. Places he couldn't go, things he couldn't afford, friends he couldn't speak to. When the war's over, you'll still be a queer werewolf with a chip on your shoulder. That nasty voice returned. Wait, James said suddenly. Our letters arrived! Remus looked up, confused. Mrs. Potter was smiling mischievously, her eyes twinkling. My goodness, she said, pulling 3 thick envelopes from her pinafore. If it took you that long to cotton on, then I'm very concerned about your owl results. She handed each of the boys their letters. They tore them open. Remus stared at the list of letters on the parchment. Weirdly, the thing that startled him the most was his acceptable for potions. That was definitely Lily Evans's doing. History of magic, outstanding. Care of magical creatures, outstanding. Charms, outstanding. And the rest exceeds expectations. A flutter of excitement started up his midriff. These were bloody good results. Yes, Moony, you beauty! James cheered, reading over his shoulder. How did you do? Remus asked, bashfully. James handed over his paper. He'd got almost entirely exceeds expectations, and 2 outstandings, one in Defence Against the Dark Arts, and the other in Transfiguration. Go and show your father, Mrs. Potter said, after kissing her son gleefully. Mr. Potter had not yet left his study, as far as Remus could tell. James took him a plate of toast, too. Sirius was looking at Remus across the table, biting his lip. You did well, then? He asked, tentatively. Remus nodded curtly. I'm pretty happy, yeah. He desperately wanted to know how Sirius had done, mostly to find out if he'd done better in History of Magic. Luckily, he didn't need to ask. Sirius slid his parchment across the table. Remus craned his neck to look at it. They had achieved exactly the same number of owls, in different subjects. Sirius's outstanding grades had come in Transfiguration, Defence Against the Dark Arts, and, incredibly, Muggle Studies. Remus tried not to smile at this. Instead, he glanced up at Sirius coolly and said, I beat you in history. Mrs. Potter and the boys left shortly after breakfast, and Remus was alone. He went outside into the garden and sat on the edge of the low patio wall, staring out at their acres of green open land. He pulled out his fags. Only 3 left. He could maybe go into town later and buy some. He had a bit of shrapnel in his back pocket. Too tall to steal these days. Lupin. Remus hoped his shoulders hadn't stiffened too visibly at the sound of that gruff voice. He turned slowly. All right, Moody? He was glad to have the cigarette, something to hide behind. May I join you? Remus shrugged. Moody sat down on the wall beside him. Lovely day. Yeah, terrific. No doubt the Potter boys spilled the beans on the werewolf attack. Remus nodded, appreciating Alistair's bluntness. Let's get this over with. Yep. He exhaled slowly, making a smoke ring. What do you want to ask me? You know I was locked up. I've spoken with Albus and Poppy. They both confirmed your whereabouts. Yippee, Remus said, sarcastically. Moody gave him a stern look with his still functioning eye. We have suspects, though. One in particular. Someone you might have heard of. Remus went cold. His hands began to shake. He pretended he was just flicking ash. Greyback? He asked, his voice colourless. Greyback, Moody confirmed. Remus snubbed out the cigarette and gripped the wall with both hands, as if he might fall. I didn't know he was... I hadn't heard of him attacking anyone in a long time. I thought he was abroad, somewhere. Been doing your research, have you? Moody said, a note of challenge in his voice. "Can't say I blame you, lad. I'd want to know everything I could. He's not tried to contact you, then?" "No." Remus was shocked. Why on earth? "If you've done your research properly, and Dumbledore says you're clever, then you'll know Greyback has a particular penchant for children." Remus had to stop himself from touching the ancient scar on his side, those 11-year-old teeth marks. "Never wondered why?" "He's a monster," Remus said firmly. He fumbled with his cigarette packet. He needed another one to keep steady. What he wouldn't give for a spliff. "He is," Moody agreed. "But he's got a motive, mad as it may seem. We've reason to believe he likes to turn kids young, so he can show up when they're old enough and strong enough to join him." "Join him?" "In his mind, he's your father," Moody said, as if it was nothing. "He'll want you to take up the family trade, as it were." "That's disgusting!" Remus stood up, practically shouting. "It is," Moody replied, unperturbed. "But you need to be aware. Greyback hasn't been seen in Britain since the last person he turned." Here he gave Remus a very pointed look. "But a wizarding family was killed last night, all except their youngest child, who was bitten but survived. A dark mark has been cast above the house." He was definitely working with Voldemort then. Just brilliant. Is this why I can't go to Diagon Alley? "It's best if you stay away from wizard-populated areas for a while, till we catch him." "Hogwarts?" "Hogwarts is safe," Moody said. "But not Hogsmeade. I'm asking Dumbledore to keep you away." "Oh, okay." "And no more running away." That was about something else," Remus sighed. Then he thought of something. "What happened to the kid? The one that was bitten?" He raised his cigarette to his lips and sucked, but realised he hadn't lit it. Moody snapped his fingers, and it ignited immediately. "At St. Mungo's," the aura said. "Being treated. They'll be fine." "Oh, will they?" Remus could have laughed. He looked out across the fields again. It was such a beautiful day. Until the next moon, I suppose. The right people got there in time. We'll do what we can. The right people. Remus wondered whether the right people had been responsible for his being carted off to St. Edmund's. "We have a mutual friend," Moody said, out of the blue. Remus frowned at him. "Leo Ferox. Good man." "Oh, right. How do you know him?" "We were at school together, cross paths at work sometimes, and of course, working with Dumbledore. I hear you and your pals are planning to join up yourselves? That right?" Remus had the impression that Moody knew the answer to this, and just wanted Remus to confirm it himself. "Yes," he nodded. "I know I'm not James, but I'm not bad at duelling. If I can help, I want to." "If you're anything like your father, you'll be more than a help." Remus nodded glumly. How was he supposed to know whether he was anything like his father? What a stupid thing to say. "Dunno about that," he said bitterly. "I have a few limitations my father didn't have." "You could look at it that way," Mooney tilted his head. "Could look at it another way. How many werewolves do you think we've got on our side?" Remus frowned, as if Mooney had sworn at him. Is that why Dumbledore kept him so close? Is that why he hadn't alerted the Ministry as soon as Remus was reported missing? He didn't know if that was better or worse. At least someone thought he was useful. End of chapter 94.